All right, it's 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I will call the October 16, 2025 Revenue Estimating Conference meeting to order. First thing to do is to approve the agenda. So unless there's objection, I will declare that approved. See no objection. Next thing is to approve the minutes from the March 2025 REC meeting. Any comments? I make a motion to approve the minutes. All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and that is adopted. Next, we'll go to our remarks, and we'll begin with Director Acton.
All right, thank you. A little over 3 weeks ago, the books closed for FY 2025. Net general fund revenue, including transfers for the year, decreased $816.6 million, or a minus 8.4% compared to FY 2024. This is reflective of additional state tax rate reductions that took effect in tax year 2025. Fiscal year 2026 is the first full fiscal year Iowa's individual income tax rate will be 3.8%. Both nationally and here in Iowa, we are dealing with substantial economic uncertainty, which is beginning to affect consumer confidence. In September, the Conference Board Consumer Confidence Index decreased 3.6% to a 94.2%. Down from 97.8% in August. In September, the board reported that consumers were a bit more pessimistic about business conditions and job availability, but a little more optimistic about inflation and income. For the past few years, consumer spending has been the one constant that has helped drive economic growth and allowed the economy to perform stronger than expected. Declining consumer confidence could be concerning if trends continue. Tariffs and the international response to tariffs have caused trade disruptions and placed barriers on both imports and exports. In addition, we are currently in the midst of a federal government shutdown, although it is too early to determine the potential impact of the shutdown on individual states. The Federal Reserve cut the federal interest rate by 25 basis points at its September 17th meeting to a target rate range of 4% to 4.25%. Despite inflation remaining elevated, the state of the U.S. economy has continued to be strong, with the most recent report showing stronger GDP growth. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, in the first quarter of 2025, real GDP for the nation decreased at an annual rate of 0.5%, whereas Iowa's economy contracted by 6.1%. However, second quarter GDP growth was a positive 3.8% for the nation and 3.7% for Iowa. The national unemployment rate was reported at 4.3% for August, which is the highest rate in nearly 4 years. Businesses appear more hesitant to hire and are leaving more jobs open due to softer sales and uncertainty. According to the most recent jobs report, the two national industries that have created the most jobs are healthcare and hospitality. Meanwhile, manufacturing and finance, the two largest employer sectors in Iowa by withholding receipts, have lost jobs over the last year. Iowa's unemployment rate in August 2025 was 3.8%, up from 3% in March 2025. The Iowa labor force participation rate as of August 2025 was 67.5%, up from 67.3% for the same time period. Although the U.S. economy is not in a recession, current economic conditions are affecting regions differently, and the picture for the country is mixed, increasing concerns of an economic downturn. As harvest begins in Iowa, disruptions to global markets, variability of crop yields across the state, and lower commodity prices are creating tough marketing decisions for farmers and increasing the strain on Iowa's agriculture and manufacturing sectors. In addition, China's move to purchase soybeans solely from South America has caused a dramatic shift in global markets, impacting Midwest farmers. Recently enacted federal legislation has created conflicting dynamics for Iowa's economy and the general fund revenues. This legislation should help Iowa businesses and individuals by providing more disposable income, such as removing taxes on tips and overtime, increasing the standard deduction, and allowing the deduction of car loan interest. However, the overall impact of the OBBBA will create lower taxable federal income, which will also reduce income subject to Iowa taxes. Although the economic picture is mixed, state and federal tax changes are the primary factors driving this revenue estimate. As mentioned earlier, this is the first full fiscal year of Iowa's individual income tax rate being at 3.8%. Taking this into account, in addition to the recent federal legislative changes, it is estimated that Iowa's general fund revenue in FY 2026 will further decrease. However, Since the largest impact of the state income tax rate will materialize in FY 2026, we would anticipate seeing Iowa's general fund revenues begin to stabilize and increase starting in FY 2027, absent an economic downturn. These impacts are reflected in the LSA's estimate for the next 2 fiscal years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pleggy.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a good summary of the economic trends and so forth we're seeing right now as well. My only comments would be right now, there's a lot of attention being set on the Fed and what they do with rate cuts. And I think there's a lot of thoughts that those overnight rate cuts will have an impact on long-term rates as well. That hasn't necessarily been the case yet, but we'll see over time because I think a lot of people are counting on that for stimulating the housing market and refis and so forth. When I talk to bankers around the state, hiring issue has relieved itself a little bit. There's applicants now at the table, good applicants at the table. But as Jennifer said, I think we also see people kind of holding tight on their current hiring patterns and so forth. And so not real anxious to go above that. I was at a meeting yesterday with a bunch of ag lenders, and harvest is going fast. It's pretty evident around the state as you drive. It does sound like the southern corn rust is having a substantial impact in some areas on yields. If untreated, that yield impact is pretty substantial. But as you see the corn started pile up around the co-ops around the state, obviously there's still a lot of production out there, and time will tell. Grain producers are going to have a difficult year, as they did last year. Livestock producers are having a pretty phenomenal year, especially cattle operations right now, and hog production has stabilized as well. So with that, I have my comments.
All right, I'll just add a couple brief things to that. I think those were good analysis of what's going on. First of all, once again, thank you to Governor Reynolds for the opportunity to represent the executive branch on the Revenue Estimating Conference. And as always, I extend a thank you to the committee members for their thoughtful participation and all the people who helped prepare us for these deliberations, including the Legislative Services Agency, Department of Management, and the Department of Revenue. Today's work essentially does 2 things. First, it confirms the state has necessary revenue to meet the FY or fiscal year 26 appropriations made last legislative session. And second, it narrows in on the spending thresholds for fiscal year 27 as the General Assembly and the governor begin their work on next year's budget. Today's recommendations from the executive branch and the legislative branch differ by about 1.2%. Relative to the March REC estimates, the executive branch estimates for both 26 and 27 have reductions in revenue. This is almost entirely attributed to the tax cuts from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Iowa has rolling conformity with the Internal Revenue Code, meaning that when the federal government makes tax changes to the federal taxable income calculation, those flow through to the state's taxable income calculation. As a result, these federal level tax cuts have a fiscal impact on the state, and it has begun, and we can see it in the current fiscal year. The last thing I mentioned regarding tax revenues, the executive branch estimate for fiscal year 26 is not a surprise. In fact, the elected leaders of our state projected this and planned for it. Now, with the full implementation of the state's 3.8% flat individual income tax, the state was projected to be collecting less revenue. When you cut taxes, you leave more in the pockets of hardworking Iowans. To be clear, however, the state of Iowa, and because of the spending discipline, continues to be in an excellent financial position. The state has over $6 billion in cash on hand. Fiscal year 25 closed with an ending balance of around $0.9 billion. The reserve funds are at their statutory maximums, and the Taxpayer Relief Fund has a balance over $4 billion. This reduction in revenue also does not mean the state is in a poor economic condition, but that revenue previously being collected by the state once again is being left in the pockets of hardworking Iowans. Obviously, we are not in a period of the state's most robust growth, but we do continue to see growth. The most recent data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, as Director Acton mentioned, shows a 3.7% increase in Iowa's real GDP for the second quarter of 25. 2025. Largely, this is driven by, consumer spending. This puts Iowa in the top 20 in the country and consistent with economic growth at the national level. With these projections today, the fiscal year 26 enacted budget continues to meet all the statutory requirements and leaves money in the ending balance, as well as the reserve funds being fully funded. So thank you. And with that, we will move to review the fiscal year 2026 general fund estimates, accruals, refunds, school infrastructure transfer, and lottery and other transfers. And I will go first to Mr. Plague.
Yeah, let me echo your comments. I appreciated the fact that the numbers between the two estimates are extremely close. This time, the difference being, let's say, 1.2%. And the trend line is starting to get more consistent. I am anxious to see us get through to FY26 and get to what Jennifer calls a more stable environment. My recommendation for FY26 is the more conservative LSA estimate, and I would make that recommendation.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm uncomfortable. You want to say it?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the LSA numbers for fiscal year 26 and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes do have it, and those numbers are adopted. We'll move now to the review of fiscal year 2027 general fund estimates, accruals, refunds, school infrastructure transfer, and lottery and other transfers. And again, Mr. Plague.
And again, these numbers are extremely close for FY27. So just for consistency, I would also recommend we use LSA's numbers for FY27 as well.
I second.
We have a motion. We have a second to adopt the LSA recommendations for fiscal year 27. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and those numbers are adopted. Now moving to the fiscal year 26 and 27 gambling revenues transferred to other funds and interest earned on revenue funds transferred to the Rebuild Iowa Infrastructure Fund. Mr. Plague.
I have no comments on the numbers. I just make a recommendation we approve.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and those are adopted. Is there any other business to come before the conference? Seeing none, we are adjourned.